Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another session of our Thought Leadership series of webinars. Looking at the trend in the current market, the topic we have chosen today is Digital Enterprise Testing as a Service, TaaS. This is a thought leadership series by TenXLabs, a pure play software testing organization for the new digital enterprises. With over 800 ISTQB certified engineers, TenXLabs has successfully completed over 150 complex projects in diverse domains across the globe. I'm Shuchita, your host for the morning, and I have with me Shubhra Mittal, who is a delivery manager at TenXLabs and a thought leader in various aspects of enterprise delivery chain. She has worked on test delivery management assignments for a variety of portfolios of global customers. Shubhra specializes in delivering enterprise-ready test solutions in a variety of domains like CRM, ERP, online education, financial fraud detection, etc. Today, Shubhra will enlighten us on how the world is adopting new models of achieving quality through test service offerings, which we call TaaS. So, without any further delay, I welcome Shubhra.
Thank you, Suchita, and a very warm welcome to all of you to this webinar, Testing as a Service. In the course of next 40 minutes, we will evaluate how the QA demands are changing and how these changing demands are impacting the landscape of testing services. We will evaluate TaaS as a model of testing services and compare it to traditional test offerings. We will also talk about that what are the considerations you should consider when you are opting for TaaS as a model. And finally, we will have two case studies to demonstrate the real world advantage. So let us start with our webinar. What are the requirements that are driving the modern quality organizations? The first one is the ability to handle fractional QA needs. So what do I mean by fractional? Fractional means those non-functional requirements like security, usability, accessibility, which tend to occur in fits and starts. Have they do not have that when you compare it to the effort required, they are a small component compared to your functional testing needs. And probably that also explains that why these requirements have been sidelined in past. However, with mobility coming into picture, these non-functional requirements are getting more focus and attention from organizations. Now, World Quality Report indicates that 80% of the organizations consider data security needs as their top priority. The need to continuously upgrade the testing skills. Technology disruptions like Internet of Things, big data, and mobility, these are leading to faster business transformations than ever before. Our organizations are trying to keep up in the competition, but that also means that there is an increasing need for the test team to match that speed of transformation through skill upgradation. The next is the need to reduce spend on owning and maintaining test infrastructure. There is a continuous ask and pressure on organizations to increase their ROI. Therefore, organizations have to continuously revisit and optimize their operational models. This means that they try to reduce their server or the hardware footprint and also evaluate where licensing costs of tools can be optimized. Next, we have drive reusability and reliability of solutions. So organizations are more and more trying to standardize their practices and drive maturity in their operational and delivery models. The intent is that we eliminate inefficiencies and redoing of the same processes and try to get agile as far as possible. As you can see, all these requirements or from the quality organizations, they are demanding a more predictable, outcome driven, agile, and skilled testing needs. How do we answer them with the current of testing services which are available in the market? These requirements have given rise or birth to the idea of testing as a service, TaaS. So let's introduce TaaS. TaaS is an outsourcing model in which testing activities are outsourced to a third party who specializes in that area of testing. The third party specializes in simulating real world testing environments as per client requirements. In other words, TaaS is a process in which companies ask service providers to provide service testing, software testing services as and when required. The key takeaway here is specializes. We are talking about specialists in this case and not just any service provider for whom testing is one of the offerings in its inventory. The other key point to take away is that as and when required. So TaaS allows organizations to buy what they need and when they need. This means that organizations can get access to skilled people and infrastructure, specialized solutions on demand whenever they need it. You can outsource a part or a full testing needs to your TaaS providers depending upon what your requirements are. So, no matter how large or small an organization is, it can afford TaaS because TaaS is very simple and flexible approach. So TaaS is becoming popular nowadays as organizations can get the best of the services without making huge investments. Let us see that how TaaS is evaluating as a next generation delivery platform. So TaaS is not just an online order management or service providers. It is not a system which you can use to manage your service provider. Rather, it provides you an ecosystem which helps you engage with the right service provider based on the outcome you desire and then deliver it and execute it to the end. TaaS is not just a warehouse or a repository of testing tools and frameworks which the service provider provides to you, and then you have to make sense on how to optimize the use of that framework. Rather than that, TaaS looks to keep the outcome at its focus and then deploy the right tools, the right people, and even the process, and then bring these together to deliver the outcome that was desired. TaaS is not an alternative to current testing models. Rather than that, TaaS looks to address any gaps in your testing and looks to fill those gaps by providing any niche skills that may be required. TaaS is not a one stop shop for all your testing needs. It needs to be evaluated for suitability in your specific business conditions. But if it is onboarded, it promises to make the entire testing process more efficient and effective. TaaS is more than simply provisioning some environments on cloud. TaaS intends to put your solution on the cloud and develop processes around it by means of best practices, standardization, and automation to help you leverage the maximum benefit of cloud offerings, thereby maximizing your return on investment. Let us see that what are some of the TaaS solutions. So TaaS can be offered in a functional testing flavor. In functional testing, you can look at your service provider to offer you assistance with automation and execution. Automation can be done again using specialized tools which can be open source or commercial, and automation can help you reduce the amount that you will need for your integration testing, your regression testing. TaaS can even help you with crowd testing. Crowd testing is very important when you are looking to release your application or your website to a large number of users, and especially if those users are spread across platforms. So, crowd testing can give you real time feedback from users who are not biased by your company's perspective of the application. TaaS service providers can help you migrate your solutions, automation solutions, or even the manual testing needs to a cloud setup. Thereby, you do not need to provision any infrastructure in-house, but you can use those cloud systems to execute the test as and when required, and then pay on a usage-based model. TaaS can even help evaluate your application's functionality on multiple platforms. So today, in today's world, when we are getting so many platforms, PCs, mobiles, tablets, the problem is compounded when we bring in the OS also, Android, iOS, Windows, BlackBerry. So TaaS, by means of cloud testing, by means of automation testing, can help you provide a 360-degree view of your application on various platforms. The other offering that TaaS can offer is security testing. So security is becoming of paramount importance to today's organizations, not just from a legal angle, but also from ensuring customer satisfaction. In TaaS model, your service providers will be able to do penetration testing for you, which means that verifying your application for the common security vulnerabilities and more specifically the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. TaaS service providers can help you with the network security testing, which is a specialized testing and goes much beyond the penetration testing. It has specialists who can do a what if analysis of your application from a hacker's mindset and help to secure your website or your application against the social engineering attacks. Usability testing. So usability testing and accessibility testing. These have been a less focused area for many organizations in the past. However, given that our customers are demanding a seamless experience across platform and there are legal requirements as well that are driving the accessibility standards, service providers can come in very handy here. They can use a combination of automation testing via tools and a manual testing so as to provide you a full view of your application and ensure its compliance to the accessibility standards. TaaS can also help you with performance testing. The need for performance testing is growing as our user base is growing and the customer's expectation of high availability of service. TaaS can help you with load and stress testing. It can not only create the web tests for you, but it can also enable you to run those web tests, the load tests, on a cloud-based environment so that you can have flexibility to turn off the environment when you need is done. These kind of service providers provide specialized service which can enable the performance profiling and monitoring as well. This will help you to identify any weak spots in your service and ensure that your application or especially an app which is running on a mobile does not consume resources beyond the threshold value. These kind of testing areas can help you develop a very strong test strategy and deliver a robust product. Consider these challenges to be addressed when you're doing mobility testing, IoT testing, ETL testing, and etc. They can be a combination of open source tools or commercial tools, and even these tools combined can be used to deliver a holistic solution for your testing needs. Let us take a few examples when you can evaluate TaaS. You should evaluate TaaS when you are looking at testing demands that are fractional in nature. By fractional, we mean, again, those demands which occur in fits and starts and they require a smaller importance compared to your functional testing needs. Examples of such testing can be performance, security, and usability. You can look at tasks when you are looking for some specialized skills or some niche skills like automation in a mobile application for security testing, penetration testing, or a social engineering attack or threat modeling of your application. Tasks can also be visited at when you do not have a dedicated testing group or capacity. For example, your organization wants to experiment with a new idea. If you were to use your in-house resources, then either you would have to hire new ones or your existing resources would have to work on extra time. This means that your ideas will not be able to get the attention they deserve and may lose on their freshness. In a task model, you can quickly get the resources in a very short period of time, enabling you to test with new ideas very quickly. You can evaluate tasks when you want to increase the usage or the utilization of your tools and resources by sharing them across teams or by migrating to a test to a cloud model. Let us see the characteristics of tasks and then we will use these characteristics to compare a task model to the traditional testing services available. The first characteristic of TaaS is that it is on demand. You can get access to the resources, the right people, the skilled people, specialized solutions as and when you need it. You should never be constrained on your delivery by unavailability of resources or infrastructure. The next characteristic of TaaS is that you pay as you go. The idea is that you should pay only for the utilized resources, be it people or be it infrastructure. Therefore, you can minimize the wasteful spending in your organization. The third characteristic is specialized. In TaaS, again, we always focus on specialist test providers so that we can be assured of the best quality and outcome. The fourth characteristic is standardized. Service providers are continuously trying to standardize the frameworks and modernize them so that they can minimize the time it is required for their clients to get up and running. This kind of standardization allows you to explore the maximum potential of the tool and thereby maximize your ROI. The fifth characteristic of TaaS is that it is service focused. Service providers try hard to maintain the highest quality of service levels for their clients. This is mandatory for them to maintain their customer pool and to ensure that their brand image remains intact. Therefore, you as a client or as a consumer of the SaaS model can be assured of better and holistic services. Let us see that on the first characteristic, on demand, how does a traditional model fare with respect compared to TaaS? In a traditional model, we tend to manually create and maintain our environments. Whereas in a TaaS model, usually we resort to cloud services to spin off environments as and when they are required. In test environments, in traditional cases, we maintain multiple environments to match the production version compatibility. In TaaS also, we may need to create multiple environments, but we keep them alive for only as long as they are needed. And the turnaround time for creating a new environment is usually very low compared to an entire setup that is required in a traditional model where we manually manage these environments. This dynamic provisioning of environments allows us to reduce the operational costs without compromising on our quality of service or the agility with which we can serve our customers. When it comes to resources, in a traditional model, you need to know the requirements months in advance so that you can initiate the resource onboarding process. There will be a waiting period for the right resource to join, and if you end up hiring a wrong resource, the cost is very high because while you continue to bear the expenses of the resource, you cannot utilize the resource. Compare this in a task model. In task model, your waiting time for getting the resources onboarded to your application is very low. In addition, if you think that you have ended up onboarding a resource who does not match your expectations, you can quickly get them replaced. In the traditional model, your agility to experiment and iterate with new ideas is low because people are not readily available. Whereas in the task model, if you have any new ideas to play with, then you can validate them very quickly since you can get the right resources onboarded. The next characteristic is pay as you go. In the traditional model, we can predict the cost, but we cannot predict the profits. The reason is that in a traditional model, we cannot ensure utilization of the resources. Therefore, we call it as resource costing. Compare this in a task model. In task, you pay only for the utilized resources. Therefore, it is called as value costing. In the traditional model, because you work with fixed team sizes and the resource pool available is mostly fixed, you cannot scale up or scale down very easily. Whereas in the task model, depending upon your requirements, you can scale up, scale down, maybe as uh, quickly as on a day's notice. In traditional models, you tend to buy test tools and you own them. So you have to pay their ongoing licensing costs, maintenance costs, upgrade costs, etc. Whereas in a task model, you tend to use test tools only based on the usage that you do. The third characteristic of task is specialized. In traditional models, we need to use trainings to maintain the depth and the breadth of the skill set of our team. And in spite of that, because of the limited exposure, they may not be able to evaluate, understand, and put to use the full potential of a tool. Whereas in a task model, the service provider invests in maintaining the entire spectrum of the skill set and make sure that it develops a deep expertise across the entire technology spectrum so that it can offer high level of quality. In a traditional model, we tend to form project based groups because we will form a team who will be in the same business unit or the same department. Therefore, there might be gaps in the skill sets that of the team. In a task, we tend to choose a team based on the skills requirement, and therefore we get a much solid team when it comes to capability building. Standardized. When we are in a task model, then the service providers try to drive more predictability and standardization in their offerings. They do this so that the time which is required for them to be up and running and offer services to the clients is low. However, they're still open to customizations and extensions depending upon the client needs. But these kind of standardizations can enable the users of the framework and the tools to exploit the full potential of the tools. In the traditional model, we have the ongoing cost. We have to bear the ongoing costs of staying up to date on with respect to our tools knowledge. And in spite of that, there is a continuous learning curve on adopting new tools, which can cause a suboptimal use of those tools. Service focused. In a traditional organization, we are more people centric. So if you have a requirement, we try to match how what are the skill sets that are available and therefore what testing needs can be addressed. Whereas in a task model, we are result centric. So we try to get the team based on the result which is required and the business outcomes that are required. In a traditional model, organizations tend to expand their scope too much so that uh, even if so that your focus is lost from the core functions. Whereas in a task model, you do not have to worry about the non-core functions as they can be outsourced to external experts. And therefore, it is the best win-win situation for both from both aspects, from a business delivery aspect as well as from the testing aspect. In traditional model, the employees tend to get complacent because of lack of challenges, etc. In a task, there is no room for complacency for the service provider, as he knows that he is being monitored for every single penny that the client is paying him. So, what are the considerations that you should keep in mind when you try to opt for TaaS? The first is that you have to provide your testers enough domain and product knowledge required for efficient and effective testing. The first part of this is that you should decide that what component of your testing requirements you need the service provider to help you with. Then you should provide them just enough domain and product knowledge so that they can be effective in that testing. If you do not provide any help or any knowledge transfer, then they will not be able to do justice to the testing. However, at the same time, you should look to protect your intellectual property as well. The next is that you should invest in tools which are required for collaboration. Often, your service providers may not be co-located with your other functions and other teams or developers, especially. But a close interaction might be necessary for them, at least at the start of the work, so that they can understand the product to the extent it is required for them. Therefore, if required, invest in tools which will allow collaboration. Understand the vendor offerings and service levels. Whenever you are evaluating a vendor for the offerings, you should always see their past experience. What are the service levels and SLAs that they offer? What are their tools and the frameworks that they offer? And that you yes, and you can always demand for a low stake pilot project if you want to be satisfied with the service provided by the service providers. Finally, whenever you opt for a task model, make sure that you do not end up in a situation where you cannot revert back from some offerings. There should always be reversibility and migration. If you want to choose to migrate to a separate tool, a separate service provider, then the situation should not occur that the entire work has to be redone for it by you. Let us see that how a typical task process or life cycle for a task offering will go. The first action item is on you as a person or as an organization who is seeking to onboard the task to task. You should evaluate your business needs first. You should understand that what are the limitations that or what are the requirements from a security, privacy, customers' data, which may prevent you to outsource your testing needs. You should also evaluate that what are those gaps in your in-house team that you need support with. It might be a very good idea to involve your legal advisors and authorities, especially from a legal assessment point of view about security and privacy. Then you should draft the requirements for your vendors. These requirements are more like job descriptions. Based on those requirements, you can invite for proposals from service providers and then evaluate those proposals to see that which offerings suit you. In this hype-driven market, you can leverage social media like sites like TechGig to evaluate that how honest and how truly effective service providers are. If you still want to be sure, you may want to run a pilot program with your service provider. The next step in this uh, process is to develop governance. So this at this point, you should establish very clear policies on how do you manage your team, how do you expect data security, and the protection of your intellectual property. If there are any compliance requirements that are required, you must discuss them with your service provider. It is important to keep in mind that transition to the task is a shared journey with your service provider. Therefore, having him work as per the demands of your organization is a must. You must let your service provider know that what is that clear outcome that you are looking for and what are the metrics which you will be using for measuring that outcome. If you have any baseline for those metrics, you should definitely provide it to your service provider. You must work out a communication channel, reporting channel, and the cadence so that you can monitor the progress of the team on a regular basis. At this point, you should also understand that is your service provider asking you for any costs in addition to service? You must agree on those costs. Such costs might include any licensing cost, any subscription costs, etc. Once you have developed this governance model, it is time for you to execute, monitor the progress, and then iterate if required. If you see that there are any breaches in the goals, then it is time for you to take corrective action. Discuss the situation with your service provider and see what corrective actions need to be taken. Very closely track the progress trajectory to ensure that the work is being done in a timely manner and as per the agreed standards of quality. Here, the metrics that you had defined during the governance phase will come in handy. Finally, when you are done with the execution, then you should ask for any trainings as required so that if you want to take that activity in house or you want to continue to maintain the deliverable, you can do that. Finally, follow the agreed upon payment model. Let us summarize. So TaaS can provide you substantial benefits, but not without proper homework being done by you. The responsibility is on you to validate that what are the requirements that your business organization is looking for and how TaaS can help you with. The potential of TaaS is huge, but its deployment may vary from one industry to another. And this is something that we should keep in mind that TaaS is not like one size fits all. If you have a solution which cannot be deployed on cloud because maybe it's a legacy solution, maybe there are very stringent demands with respect to customer data and maintaining the data on-premise servers. In that case, the cloud-based task implementation may not be possible. So you have, but there might be some components of that application that can be migrated to cloud. So you should work with your service provider to see that if cloud-based solution is suitable for you, and if it is not suitable as a whole, are there any parts that can benefit by being migrated to cloud? The service works best where volumes are high and workload can be easily delinked from live operations. So you may want to start with a problem statement where your team can work, where the service provider team can work independently. For example, web automation, cloud testing. These are kind of operations where after the initial knowledge transfer sessions, the team can work in isolation and provide you regular reports and monitoring metrics. However, gradually, as your processes mature, then you can increase or expand the scope of TaaS offerings to business as usual. True benefit of TaaS lies in aligning the pricing to successful outcome-based model. It is very important to keep in mind that you should never evaluate TaaS or you should never have TaaS on the same lines as we have done traditionally in time and material terms. So in TaaS, you always pay for an outcome, but do not let your vendor handle you an invoice based on the effort that had been put. With this, we will move on to two case studies which have been taken from the real world experience of my organization, TenXLabs. The first case study that we have over here is that how TenXLab helped a private travel booking company in India to deliver a low-cost mobile automation and performance solution. The problem statement was that this travel booking company had released a mobile app on multiple platforms, but it did not know that what are those platforms that the mobile app should be tested on. In addition, it had only manual processes set up. There was no automation to allow it to get feedback from multiple platforms. Even worse, the end users experienced frequent crashes of the app and unavailability of service. So what did 10x Lab do? The 10x Lab helped them. Actually, 10x Lab owned delivery of a reusable cross-platform automation solution for mobile applications. This was done for iOS and Android applications with multiple APIs and OS versions covered. In addition, we did the performance profiling of the app on multiple devices to identify those areas where resource consumption was going up, and even in the service, we identified the weak points which were causing the service to crash frequently. We also deployed cloud testing or community testing to provide a holistic feedback on the application. The business benefits were huge. There was a 50% decrease in the customer complaints. A consistent and reliable user experience was enabled for the application users. And by using an offshore team, They could save substantial cost savings. The projections are 33% of cost savings were enabled for the client. And in addition, automation ensured that they could roll out their solutions and updates to the app faster and quickly. In a second case study, here the client is an educational provider who provides an integrated platform through which teachers, students, school administrators can collaborate with each other to manage assignments and reporting needs of an school. The business challenge here was that this was a very business critical app, so a test strategy was required which will enable it to roll out the updates very quickly and cater to frequent build cycles. This application was required to be tested on various devices with OS and browsers, iPads, iPhones, Android, Windows, PCs, tablets. All these were supposed to be the target platform for supporting the app. In addition, their sales team required frequent spin-off of demonstration environments so that they can use those environments for demonstration purposes to prospective clients. In this case, 10x came in handy with automation solution. So we built a keyword-driven, business-friendly automation framework using GitHub for code management, Travis for continuous integration, and Selenium and Source Labs. We even introduced the private cloud testing so that whenever there was a new release, along with the automation suite, this private cloud testing could identify any early and key usability issues. All this time, we used a lot of reusable assets to reduce our turnaround time to the business needs. The biggest business benefit was that the client was able to move the quality upstream. The automation solution was even used by the development team to ensure that they were delivering higher quality builds to the test team. For any enhancements, we used to scale up the team so that the enhancements could be tested completely within one business day and released to the end user, providing the quality met the done criteria. The automation solution was extended to make sure that the demonstration environments required by the sales team could be spinned off within 3 hours. Compare this to 5 days, which was the previous ETA. This was a huge win for the client in winning and showing their capabilities to their respective clients. I would also like to share that among other service providers, 10x has also got its TaaS offering. So we can provide mobile application automation testing, performance testing, test automation, test design and execution, or even test execution. You can visit our website 10xlabs.com if you need more information. I would now want to move on to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhra. There is a list of questions coming on the other screen. We'll take them one by one. The first one is from Vikram. He wants to ask, in a crowdsourced testing, how does a service provider guarantee quality?
Thank you, Vikram, for that question. First of all, let me make sure that we all understand that crowd does not mean that we have picked up any random testers for testing. If your service provider follows any quality standards, then they will make sure that the cloud testers or the community testers also that they are referred to, they have been completely trained in the test processes. For example, in my organization, 10x Labs, whoever is the tester who is provisioned on a project, he is always ISTQB certified. This ensures that they are fully aware of testing concepts and they understand the testing approach. These testers will use scientifically proven techniques like pairwise testing, orthogonal array testing to create very effective test cases. Coming to the second part, which is the how part of testing. So, all good service providers, they keep a very exhaustive checklist of various testing types or the line items that have to be visited by by a tester for testing purposes. They maintain this checklist which is valid across domains. It is further extended by applying domain specific functionality to it. And when a particular application comes, this checklist is defined so that it is robust and complete. For developing these checklists are again not random in nature. These service providers they use scientific research and statistical methods to identify where the defects tend to cluster in a domain or in an application. Just to share with you a statistics in e-commerce, scientific research has identified 44 functional categories where the functionality should be verified. The other aspect is governance aspect. So service providers will monitor the activities very closely to ensure that there are no deviations from the specified quality. So this is done by using a pyramid of team leads and technology like delivery rooms or agile rooms, which can help you monitor the progress in real time. And finally, you as a consumer have got a lot of power. We have been saying that testing as a service is an outcome driven testing. So you can opt to pay the service provider only when your desired outcome has been achieved and validated by you. So I hope this helps you in understanding that how crowd testing can help you in ensuring a high quality and a robust product output.
Okay, that was explained well. The second question says, do TaaS offerings recommend commercial tools or open source tools?
So I would like to say that TaaS by itself does not gravitate towards either commercial tools or open source tools. It is completely driven by your business needs. If your application is compliant or if it is feasible to achieve the outcome using open source tools, your service providers may recommend that for you to keep the costs low. At the same time, if they are not feasible, if some commercial tools have to be used, they may recommend that to you. Also, keep in mind that that lot of service providers tend to partner with solution providers as well. For example, your service provider for mobile automation may have partnered with Perfecto Mobile or CTest for the offering. In when this is there is such a scenario, then they will discuss with you that how this kind of a commercial tool implementation can be implemented for your specific needs. You may stand to benefit by their partnership because there can be substantial cost savings by relying on those compared to regular subscriptions. But whenever you're going for such models, make sure that you do not get locked in with a specific service providing or a specific solution. You should always have that flexibility with you.
Okay. We are reaching the end of the webinar, but we'll still accommodate one more last question. Nathan wants to ask, we are a group of three people, startup, operating on a shoestring budget. How can TaaS help us?
So, Nathan, this is a pretty good question, and even for big organizations, they are now leaning more and more towards frugal engineering, trying to reduce the costs. So, TaaS can help you with that. It is not about the cost aspect of it, but you should evaluate that does the TaaS model suit your needs at the moment. For example, if you're working on a very critical idea, something which is the next big thing, a big transformation in the IT industry, and you want to retain your intellectual property with you, then you have to evaluate tasks that where you can outsource some aspects of your application without giving away too much of your intellectual property. Uh, so it completely depends upon your business need and your outcome. But trust me on this, that cost is not going to be a constraining factor when you choose a service provider.
Thank you, Shubhra. We have come to the end of this webinar. That said, these are monthly recurring webinars. We appreciate your joining us today and we look forward to seeing you again when we talk about another interesting topic next month. Thank you and bye bye.
Thank you, everybody.